Welcome, welcome, dear ones, to this experience. I just encourage you to allow yourself to fully land in this moment. Whatever you had to do to get here, what if in this moment you could just enter into an experience of feeling rested? Could you do that? Would you do that? And imagine all of us around the world who are gathered in this moment, just allowing ourselves to rest. So go ahead and just gently close your eyes as if your eyelashes are a butterfly wing. Just allow your breath to find a normal cadence for yourself, almost like a baby breathing where you're allowing your stomach to be breathed and just resting. There's nothing else you have to do and no other place that you need to be. This is it. This is this moment. Allow yourself to feel a sense of right timing, a sense that you were called to this circle for this time, and that this is exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to be doing, which is just to be in the presence of a circle of women from around the world, of all ages and all cultures and all beliefs and all forms of activism and creativity. And here you are, you have found yourself here in this moment. And today, our focus together as a community, as a circle of women, is around the ceremony aspect of the red thread, of really experiencing a feeling of connection. Now, before we go deeper into the ceremony aspect, I invite you to just inquire for yourself, if I am where you are in a video image broadcasting throughout the world, if I send you love like we practiced in our first seminar together, how do you receive that love from a scientific perspective? Does it actually travel from me to you? Do you see it moving? Do you feel it moving? Does a place within you receive it? What happens? Is it quantum in some way? Are we somehow creating a space together? What do you think? Do you think that things like distance healing, or that when you think about someone and they think about you, how do you think those things happen across the field without any space-time like preventing it or even curating it? It just happens. Do you believe that even if we have never met each other, that in this moment we could be connected and feel a sense of love, a sense of healing, a sense of a desire to be together and to each of us feel our own red thread? What are your thoughts about it? I'm not inviting you to replace your thoughts with mine. I'm actually really, truly asking you about ceremony in the COVIDian era, about ceremony from across the miles, about creating a space of ceremony with others that you have never met and in some ways aren't sure about yet. Can you still engage? What do you think? And what do you feel if you just tune in and use your imagination? Can you see all of us here together for different reasons, but asking this question? How are we connected? How does it really work? Do you know any of the science behind how it works, how information and energy travels and is experienced as form? And it is when your brain and heart are asking these questions that we begin to engage in a sense of the ceremony. The ceremony. And what is a ceremony? A ceremony is an experience that we create because we choose to. It's intentional. It's an intentional place, a sacred space, a calling together of a container that we say it's more than a circle, it's a ceremony. And it's a ceremony because there's ritual and because there's an order to it. And in this case, there's a ceremonialist, which is me. But in the red thread circle, it's actually all of you are the ceremonialists. Can you allow yourself to move into a place as if you and your presence here is just as important as mine and those running the technology and those helping with all aspects of the red thread training? Can you, whether we've ever met or exchanged emails or met face-to-face for tea, can you include yourself in this circle as if you are just as important, and not only important, essential to the fabric, that the circle we're making right now cannot exist in the way that it does now without you? And what comes up for you if you tap on your heart and you just ask, oh, can I let myself be that relevant? Can I let myself matter that much? And if you feel any blocks in yourself to mattering and being essential, or you even question what I'm saying could even be true, like maybe you just don't even believe that you could be as important to me in this moment as I may be to you in this moment. This is the red thread, the being in inquiry about, the practicing into connection, even when we don't know who else may be there. It's like a communing with potential. It's a possibility of connectivity. And many of us in our community of intentional creativity believe that we together are creating a field of connectivity. In fact, since we've started, the field is beginning to build. There are different scientific and spiritual theories about how that field gets actually created and populated with our consciousness. And the red thread is the talisman, the physical symbol that we use to bring our awareness to the practice of being connected. And whether we're in a circle in person, like we used to be and will again soon here at Musea in Sonoma, or whether it's just this moment together, we are in a circle and you are a part of it and you are essential to this weave. And this is the beginning of the ceremony. The beginning of the ceremony is that inquiry about your own thoughts about how this works. Then an invitation to consider yourself as relevant truly to what's being created. And now I'm asking you to amplify using your imagination as we each hold out our red thread. And if you do not have a physical red thread, or you have a shawl, or you just have your hands which have the blood, the red blood running through them, just go ahead and hold this out. Hold this red thread as if it is a flower. Hold this red thread as if this is tender, as if this is precious, as if this is something that you can't even believe you get to hold and connect to. Can your awareness and your treatment of it amplify the very particles of the red thread? Yes. And so as each one of us either holds out our hand and our red thread, the energy is building, because it can't not be building. This is how we are. Human beings generate heat and energy and light and wave, and it moves. And it sounds so spiritual, but it's really so scientific that as I hold this, it becomes charged up with my heat and my energy. If I passed it to you right now, you would actually feel my energy moving in it through the heat. And if you're like, who is this lady? I'm not going to hold out my hands. Just be with that too. Just be with, are you embarrassed to, or why? Or maybe you haven't had an experience with ceremony, or maybe you haven't had an experience of being in a quantum space where we're practicing radical levels of inclusion, even without knowing who's here. Really knowing. I can't really know, but I have to trust enough to know that you're called here as I'm called here, which is one of the legends of the red thread. So as this is, each one of our red threads is amplified. It's like homeopathic medicine, right? It's like this tiny dose, which then amplifies. So just invite you to imagine that between each one of our threads, there's now another thread and another thread. And will you be brave with me using your body to just take your finger and connect to your thread and connect it to some other threads? And just see them and imagine them like a constellation throughout the world as we make these connections consciously and intentionally. And even if you feel uncomfortable, that's all part of it. You're risking. There is no true ceremony that doesn't have some risk involved. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. And now see all of these balls of thread all around the world, all of them connected to each other, unless you took your hands back and you didn't want to be a part of that. And that's okay too, but just notice the contraction. If you feel like, well, I don't know if I want to do that, that's okay. Because if you choose to lead red thread circles, there's going to be a lot of people too who don't necessarily want to be connected. I have led red thread circles where people put the red thread on and then left it when they left. Sometimes people don't want to be included or don't want to be with you. That's okay too. But it's that noticing, it's that conscious noticing. And so now that all of these are connected, I invite you to use a visual where, as if you are looking at the earth and you could actually see the entire earth connected with these balls of red thread between each person. See the network, see the weave. Know that you're a part of it. You are one node in the matrix of connectivity, matrix from the feminine with the ma in there. We are all connected. This red thread, the umbilical cord from the original mother to this moment, you are a part of everything that is, and you are so precious. And we so much need you in your presence here, and we have been waiting for you. So as you hold your piece or your entire ball of red thread, know that it is cherished by me. And then being brave in a quantum space, say to the camera as if you're saying to the other people, you are cherished by me. Will you do that? Will you say that out? You can put it on gallery view and just pick someone and say, you are cherished by me. You are cherished by me. This isn't about knowing that person. And just take a moment and be with them, and they won't know it's you. So you're just being with them as you allow yourself to just let other people feel cherished in your presence and how that has you feel cherished. As we just create an energy around the world of women cherishing each other and being cherished. And letting the feeling or the emotion settle into us of being a part of something that's happening right now, that's healing, something that is needed, something that helps us reweave ourselves together. As we hold this red thread and as we hold this connection, I invite you to go ahead and to whisper a prayer into your red thread. And as you whisper it in, imagine that your breath and your words are like little ripples that are just literally going into the most teeny tiny particle of the thread. Like your breath, your sound, your wave is going directly into the particles as each one of us takes a moment and just whispers a prayer into our thread or into our hands. The red thread is a sign of connection. The red thread is the blood from the ancient stars. The red thread is the connection to our birth mother and our grandmother, all the way back to the original mother. The red thread is a sign of connection and a mark of protection across many cultures. The red thread reminds us that we are already connected and that each one of us has our own unique piece that matters, and the weave will not be complete or what it could be if each one of us doesn't contribute our own weave. This red thread is ours together, a shared experience. And now I invite you to take this red thread, which is completely charged up with your prayer and your love, and each one of us has this, and just place it on your heart in a sense of tenderness and self-tenderness. And if there's anything that you feel like you just need to say to yourself right now, I invite you to just gently listen as you hold the thread to your heart. Does the hidden self or the one within have something she wants to tell you in this moment? It's like a message from the divine within. Listen. In this sacred space, messages and information and energy comes that's different because we're creating this here together. So I invite you to go ahead and write down the message you received. And if you feel called, you can also just pop it in the chat if you feel like sharing. Mine was just so simple. It's like, you are okay right where you are. You are okay right where you are. Because I get nervous about coming to see you. I get nervous about giving you what you need and meeting you where you are with where I am. I feel worried sometimes that I'm not going to give you the exact thing you need as I'm trying to listen to hundreds of hearts as I come together in this moment. But I trust the red thread is holding us all together and that whatever I'm doing is enough. And so my message is about being okay right where I am. And that allows my system to calm and anxiety to go away and to have a feeling of being exactly right where I need to be, holding my own piece of red thread, which is to share the red thread with you. Now in this red thread ceremony, as you now take this thread and make a little rhythm on your heart. Notice how this red thread could just be so many things. It's this physical, tangible symbol. As you just tap on your heart with the thread, just listening. And I invite you to one of the core questions central to the way of the red thread. And it is, what piece of the red thread am I holding today? And you just tap your heart as you listen for the answer or the next question. What piece of the red thread am I holding today? And breathing. Listening. And now I invite you to get your piece of paper and a pen. And whatever color you have is just fine. If you have red, great. And if you just have black or you have a piece of ballpoint pen and a lined paper, that's fine. And don't worry about the materials. If you have nothing, you're going to use your finger. And what I invite you to do is to start with just writing on the page somewhere what the piece of red thread that you're holding. So the piece of red thread that I'm holding or the piece that I'm holding today, however you want to say it. Just write it down so you don't forget. If you feel like sharing, you're more than welcome to. I put the piece of red thread I'm holding is expansive love, the sense that the love that we're in right now could actually do big work, like really big, like more than we could imagine, that it's so powerful being together this way that anything that's in my body or field or consciousness that needs to be healed, I don't even have to name it. Just in the field of your presence, it just does it on its own. It just starts to do that. Because if I hold my wholeness and I hold a vision of your wholeness, we call that forth in each other. So I'll often say, let anything within me that's ready to be moved and healed, if it's ready to be moved and healed, let it be so. I don't have to grasp for it. I don't even have to name it. If I'm holding my red thread, I'm just in that with you. And we experience this all the time in community: energy moving, wounds healing, traumas lessening, stress reducing. So it's here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to practice feeling supported with our piece of red thread. This is all part of the ceremony. And if you were leading red thread, you could be doing it just like I am now with a piece of paper. You could have it on a clipboard, or if you're doing it in a circle. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice feeling supported with our piece of the red thread. Now in red thread circles, you can pick any theme, right? You could do it about grief, about love, about sensuality, about creativity, about your voice, any theme. It's neutral to theme, any theme you want. And often I come to a red thread circle with a theme idea, but then I listen and I see, is there something else that has arisen based on being with you? And that's part of what we teach in the Red Thread training, is how to feel into the circle and then trust your intuition. And so when I asked myself the question, what is the drawing today? We call this metacognitive drawing. What is the drawing today? It was to be supported, to allow yourself to feel supported right where you are. So that becomes the theme for the thread. It could have been anything, right? So you're going to do a drawing. I'll demonstrate. And the exercise is just to allow yourself to feel supported in whatever you're holding today by all of us. And each one of us is doing exactly the same thing. We're all drawing. So the support is real. It's rising up in the space. We're actually building a field of support together. And if we could see it visually, if we could see the science behind this, you would see the reality of what's happening. So we're doing something we call metacognitive drawing, and it's metacognition is thinking about thinking. So you're basically moving the pen while you think about the inquiry. And the inquiry is about feeling supported in your red thread today. So I'll demonstrate. The only real instruction is like, don't go fast, don't control it, let the pen just move. And so I begin by saying, I feel supported in my red thread today. And then I just move the pen. I feel supported in my red thread today. And you can repeat it over and over. You don't have to, and you just let the pen move as you practice the feeling of being supported. And this is a part of the ceremony, right? If we were in person, we'd be doing different things, but virtually you're practicing feeling supported. So let's go ahead and just move the pen as you practice feeling supported. And the pen and so you're using your body, which brings it into the somatics, right? So you're being physical, and then you're also being creative, and then you're also being visual, right? So we're activating the idea by bringing form and motion to it. So I'm moving the pen as I allow myself to feel supported in my red thread today. Just keep breathing as you move and then come to a natural resting spot. Now I'm going to ask you to write a sentence that you fill in the blank with. And the sentence is, if I was supported, then what becomes possible for me is. Or if I am supported, what becomes possible for me is. And just write down what comes to you. I am supported, what becomes possible for me is. Beautiful. Wonderful. And in our community, we do a lot of documenting. If you want to document this and share it in our Musea app or in the Redthread Cafe classroom, please do. We really honor metacognitive intuitive drawings around here. And one of the things that happens through this kind of drawing is that you access the subconscious. Different information ideas arise for you than when we started, right? So we're looking for information. Now, if you were leading the circle yourself in person, the next thing that would happen is that we go around the circle and each person would be able to share that out loud, right? They'd be able to share that, or they could have shared their red thread. So basically a red thread circle, you all, is so simple. It's truly having the red thread or visualizing it, working with a topic or theme that you're present to, and then going around the circle in some way, physical or virtual, and allowing the other to be witnessed. And so for those of you who feel called to be witnessed, you could write your phrase in the chat and we could witness you. You could post it in the groups and we could witness you. You could do #witness if you want, because that's one of the gifts of the red thread, is to be a witness to others and to be witnessed. And through doing that, we amplify presence and love, and healing becomes possible. I mean, we all know that when we can share our stories and be who we are, and be heard and be witnessed, that transformation happens. And that when we keep all the stories inside and we keep hiding, part of the thing that happens is that we don't feel essential, and we don't then feel like we have a red thread. If you were to treat yourself as if you have a red thread that you must hold on to and work with, that is like a core message in your life. And if you felt support, if you knew what that was, and you felt supported in holding that red thread and nurturing that red thread, what would be different for you in your life? How would your gifts get to be expressed? Note that even with this little bit of training on the red thread, that you could lead a red thread circle in a corporate setting, inviting people to talk about the vision of the company. You could lead it in a setting for people who are recovering from grief. You could lead it in a circle where there's trauma. You could lead a circle of celebration for a baby or a wedding or a coming of age. You could use the red thread in any setting, including with one person, but there's more than one person. And there's something about how it feels when each person gets their chance to speak. And this is kind of the talking piece. And if we were physically in person, after each person shares, then we'd be each cutting our piece and putting it on. So it's this sense of connection, but then also this return to sovereignty. This whole thing is in itself a ceremony. And right now, we are in a virtual ceremony. And whatever you experienced along the way, little ahas, little discomforts, little discoveries, little wonderings about comings and goings, what's happening, making stuff up, moving stuff around, whatever comes up for you in the ceremony gets included, because we are in a red thread circle together. So however you choose to be witnessed, I just invite you to be as if we are all in red thread circle together. And to complete this part of our time together, I invite each one of you to go ahead, and your mics are off, but you just say out loud, if I, or when I am supported, what becomes possible for me is, so that your voice speaks it out. So I'm just going to count to 3, and then each one of you just speak it right where you are into the space. 1, 2, 3. And once you have spoken, listen to the others. Today, these voices have been heard. Today, we gathered and explored an inquiry. Today, we chose to include ourselves in a circle, and we were brave. Today, we explored what our piece of the red thread might be. We practiced feeling supported, and then we made a kind of declaration or a proclamation of what could happen if we could feel supported. And we did it individually, and we did it together. And this is ceremony. What we bring to it is how it gets created. And every single one of you is capable of creating ceremony your way, with your peers, with your family, with your community, with your coworkers, with the creatures and plants and animals, with whoever you choose. This red thread experience allows us to become modern day medicine keepers. In different traditions, there are always women who are the tenders of the village. Those would be the women who have a hold of the red thread. And for a long time, there's been lots of those women, but there are also like only 1 or 2 per village or community of the truly gifted shamanka, or the truly gifted curandera, the truly gifted medicine woman. But we're in a time in our world now where we need more than just those who have an innate gift or a gift that got passed from their ancestors. We're in a time now where we need all of us who are willing to rise into being a part of medicine keeping. And it isn't based on your unique clairvoyance. It isn't based on the things you're good at or other people praise you for. It isn't based on what people even admire you for. It isn't even based on your skill. It's based on your heart and your desire for mending and for healing. We need more than just those who are naturally gifted to become the healers now. And those who are in the experience of the wounded healers, there's a certain point in every wounded healer's life where they get to make a decision, and only you know when that is, of moving from wounded healer archetypal energy and moving into what we call healed enough. It means I've done enough work. And when you've done enough work, one of the very next things that happens in our experience of working with really tens of thousands of women over a very long period of time is that you want to call circle. That's one of the signs of healed enough. You want to call circle. And sometimes wounded healers work with individuals and groups for years and years and years. But sometimes there's a moment when you're just ready to let go of feeling so wounded all the time. That's a cycle of acknowledgement. And then you can move into some other spaces to explore, which we often call healed enough. And only you know when that is, only you know. But like I said, our experience is when someone's healed enough, they want to hold on to their red thread and begin to share the red thread. And then the rest of the healing that so many of us need happens in circle, not in isolation. So often we feel like we have to do all this healing before we go out and help and serve everyone else. But actually the rest of the healing that happens in community, happens in bravery. The healing that happens when you call a circle, when you don't entirely have everything figured out and you're not sure what you're going to do. The rest of the healing happens when you start to call others into circle and work out your stuff like that, which is different than working it out just solo. So wherever you are in your path, whatever you're experiencing in this moment, whatever your reactions are, or whatever's coming up for you, whether you're planning to join us for the Redthread training, whether this is your first time and you're never coming back, or you're like, hey, there's something here, wherever you are welcome in this space as we bring completion to this part of our Redthread ceremony. Whenever you're leading ceremony, one of the good ways to complete the container for a particular part of the experience is to do a reading or to sing a song. That helps to complete the energy and the cycle and allows for each spirit to sort of rest into, okay, we're moving to another place. We have other wonderful things, as Amber mentioned to you, that are coming up. We're going to hear from Milagros next, and this reading is going to be the completion of this particular part of our time together. And this is called Bound by Love, and it's from The Way of the Red Thread, which is the intentional creativity approach to guiding circles. It's basically the manual that we use in the Red Thread training. Bound by Love. The red thread reminds us where we come from, a lineage of love and fire dancing on this earth since forever. The red thread reminds us we are one people bound by love. Our languages, our skins, our songs, our sounds, and our symbols are unique. Yet no matter what we say or do, the reality of our oneness remains. We are connected across the spaces, across the places. We are connected with the faces and the seasons and the stars. I have been waiting for you here on this red earth path, and I have been calling your name. Do you hear me calling your name? Come into this circle, my sister, my friend. My soul is quenched by your presence. Our hearts unite in remembrance. Our hands weave the threads together. Stronger together, woven together, we have been gathering here since forever. And with that, I extend out my hands and say, thank you. Thank you for being a part of this ceremony, for learning about the ways that you can work with the red thread in your own life, and being a part of a ceremony where we're practicing into connection, moving into being healed enough, and also learning to tell our stories in new and powerful ways. With that, I would love to move to our guest for our seminar today, Milagros. And Milagros is a friend, a colleague, a teacher, and somebody that I connected with virtually. And I'll never forget, Milagros, like we were connected for a long time before I saw your face. And I remember, and I've told you about it before, but there was this moment where I saw you and my heart leapt. I was like, there she is, you know, there she is. And we just had this moment. And ever since then, I don't think there's a week that goes by that we're not connected in some way. So I just welcome you to this place to share with us. It's so good to see your face. And I welcome you to share with us, with the women gathered here, about your experience with the red thread.
Thank you, Shiloh. Always an honor to be in circle with this beautiful community, and listening to you, I just had to try not to cry because I really feel the connection, and I notice over time how strong it is for me. My intention for my talk today was just sort of to walk you through my experience in a timeline a bit about how the red thread has impacted my life. As Shiloh stated, we met virtually and we were connecting for a while, but we never spoke or never met. And I remember the first time I actually chose to lean into the red thread and the community. I was preparing for my very first art festival, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. So I reached out in the community and asked for support. I asked sisters to hold me and be with me because I was scared out of my pants. And I just needed to know that I was not alone. And the support that I got was, I mean, even to this day, it's just unbelievable. Um, so I stepped out into it. And what happened was I got myself ready. I was witness, I was held, and I was ready to go. I felt really empowered. And the event got canceled. So the event got canceled. So now I'm a little bit heartbroken. But in the interim of getting ready and sharing my work and what I was doing, one of the sisters actually called to one of my paintings that I was planning on showing at the festival. And I actually made my first sale online. I'd never sold anything before. I sold my first painting to a Redthread sister. So that was amazing for me. And then what happened was, since I had the car all packed, I noticed about 2 days after that event, I was driving around running some errands and ran across a park and saw that they were setting up for some type of event. So I decided to speak to the planner and see if I can sign up for the following year, never having done a live event before. And he's like, okay, what is it that you have? So I went to the trunk and I got, all of my prints, and he saw my work. He says, can you set up in 45 minutes? I'm like, you're Skippy. Yep, I'll be right there. Ran home, got my folding table, set up shop, and I actually called in the energy of all of the sisters, and I can basically see them standing around me on my table. And I actually made about $400 that day at my very first event, and actually was the only vendor there that sold art for 3 consecutive summers. I had a table and a space. And that was just, I'm sharing just to show how integral community and being held was in my experience. And it actually helped me step out as an artist, because before then I never claimed it. And that was just so powerful for me. And in doing that, I was able to claim abundance that helped me realize other dreams, like going to Ireland, which was a dream for me for 25 years. And I finally went to Ireland for a week using, what I had gotten through those summer sales. So I want to thank those sisters then and now for their support. So community is really important for me also, because in my experience, I've always been by myself. I've always, like Shiloh was saying about the broken healer, I always felt like I was a broken being and hid in the shadows, and always excluded myself from gatherings, and specifically from women. But looking at my life now, every moment actually leads you to this moment. I realized that all my life I've been surrounded by women. I worked for the church, and and that was my first exposure to women's ministries, Sophia Wisdom. I had never heard of it before, and it was an all women's organization. I was in the military, and it was my first time being put somewhere with nothing but women. And even in my previous job, it was all a women's team and admin. So the one thing I was running away from, I realized the universe was always keeping me held by women. And now I can appreciate that. The red thread has been really integral to me in my relationships, because the concept of we are only responsible for our peace. I've always been, codependent in my relationships, a woman who loved too much, and I needed to be needed, or I needed to fix my partners because it was easier to fix them than to fix me. And I spent my whole life on that. But once I learned that through the red thread and connecting in this community, I realized that that doesn't have to be my story anymore. I don't have to carry everyone else's BS, and that's liberated me to some extent and helped me step into my, my own power. And and with the support of all of these women and witnessing them, I realized I can do that too. So, for anyone that hasn't had that experience, it's just so amazing and liberating to feel that everybody else's story is not your responsibility. You can be supportive, you can hold them, you can witness them, but you don't have to carry it. So I'm grateful for the Red Thread for that. My first live Red Thread, however, was after I met Shiloh. She sent me a text, which I thought was for someone else, and she confirmed that it was for me. So I'm like, okay, we had a chat. She shared her vision with me. And I realized that who am I to stand in front of Shiloh's, vision? I had that much respect, and I knew better than to challenge her. So I ended up accepting her invitation to Sonoma so that I can support a live class of Apothecary. And my very first Red Thread circle, I was actually paired up with Mama Cloud. And it's just such an honor to have that experience because she is part of my lineage, and honoring our lineage is part of also our practice. And the blessing is going to be with me forever. So I'm totally grateful for that experience. And totally the reason why I became a Color of Woman teacher. So I'm really, really grateful for everything that the Red Thread has brought to me. And being aware of the connection as I step into it, it strengthens and it amplifies for me. I noticed that once you get connected and you choose to be connected, your eyes open to that. And you get to see those who are meant to meet. And you start becoming aware of your meetings with people and interactions and how they're meant. This weekend, I went to North Carolina to celebrate the graduation of one of my stepdaughters. And I had a chance meeting with a young woman who I didn't plan on meeting. And I didn't have my Red Thread with me, but it was in my hotel room. However, in our exchange, she showed that she had on a beaded neck bracelet with Red Thread on it, and I showed her mine. And her father, who was talking to Harold's like, hey, you guys are connected? What's going on? And I'm like, yes, you have no idea. So it was just so great to step into my role as a Color Woman teacher, as a Red Thread bearer. And I actually felt the energy of the universe saying, this woman needs your medicine. And I just let myself talk to her from my heart, trusting that whatever came out of my mouth was what she needed to hear, because we were meant to meet. And that power and that witnessing of myself is still resonating in my body. Even now, a week later, I'm just like, I can't believe that happened. But it's just so beautiful to actually be present to it. And for that, I'm thankful for the Red Thread connection and the community. That's all I've got.
Oh, thank you so much, Milagros. It's so wonderful to hear your story and how you live it. Milagros is, I think she's one of our star artists because she is an artist of so many different domains, I often wear her jewelry, and I have her sculptures. She's a part of my visual life, and you're just such a gift to our community. So I just want to thank you so much for giving us the chance to hear your story and that connection that you just shared. Like, that's the kind of thing that happens when you start watching for the Red Thread. It's kind of uncanny. And there's something like unspoken, right? Which makes it such this feminine thing, even though it's gender neutral, but there's this feminine thing where you're like, hey, wait a second. If someone has a red thread on, you feel like you can talk to them. There's something about it, like, well, where did you get that, right? And it's so interesting how many different countries and different people have it for different reasons. Or I remember, before COVID, going to a restaurant with Jonathan, and our waiter had a red thread, and I was like, I really needed to see it that day. That's the other thing that happens sometimes. Like, you see it and you're like, oh, wow, I just really needed that. And I said, where did you get your red thread? And he's like, he was from Mexico. And he said, my grandmother gave this to me before I came to the States to protect me. And every time I go out the house, I touch it. I was like, there it is, And that's one of the things that's so awesome in the book, is that our community has been collecting stories. And the stories just go on and on and on about not only the chance encounters that you have around the world with people, but also all the different cultures that use it and have it. Not long ago, there was a video in our Redthread Cafe classroom of two women who met at the Redthread Cafe classroom. They were both in a foreign country at the same time, and they met in a park and did a red thread and took a video and sent it to us. And I had nothing to do with it, right? I was like, okay, this. And then that just happens over and over and over. Or I'm thinking about when one of our members was experienced the loss of a family member. And I put out a call. I said, who lives within 30 minutes of this town? I'm going to send you money because I need you to go bring this exact menu of food and roses and red thread to their house. And of course, they didn't want the money. And within 2 hours, as this woman who was grieving sitting out on her steps, a red thread person comes from the community and presents her with food and flowers. It's like that. And there are things like that that happen all the time. And so red thread is these ceremonies and these circles and these stories, but I feel like it's also a kind of a culture that we're creating. And I don't know what kind of culture you were raised with. Maybe you were lucky enough to be indigenous to where where your family's from, but so many of us have traveled so far. And as we traveled, we lost our language and our customs and our traditions. And many of us are inside of family traditions and we don't feel like our family is really like the culture we want. So we're all in this varying degree of what is our culture that we really want to be in and a part of. And what's so wonderful, this is my personal feeling about the red thread, the culture that we're creating together, is that it's arisen naturally. We didn't set out a guideline and be like, here's our guidelines about a red thread culture. It's literally arisen out of the experience of being in community, including the legends of the red thread. We've shared some of them with you, but one is being included, choosing yourself to be included. Another one is that you have your own piece. And Milagros mentioned the other one, which is that you don't have to take care of everybody else's. You have your own, and what a relief that is. And then the next one is that I witness. All 4 of the legends are woven through everything that we've been saying. There's something that happens. Those legends arose out of the experience of lived culture, of hundreds and hundreds of circles, and then seeing what's happening. And the whole red thread training that we're doing, offering those of you who want to join us in learning to carry this, even though you can carry it right now, but going deeper into your own self-initiation process, it's practicing being inside of that culture, but also contributing to it and amplifying it and shifting it, because every time we lead a training, we change, we evolve. And especially right now in the COVIDian era, as it's moving and doing what it's doing, I feel like we've been practicing in our community because of our global nature. For maybe 10 years, we've had a community around the world. We've been practicing feeling love, never even meeting. And then eventually, sometimes the thread gets smaller and smaller until you're finally face to face with that person, which I was with Milagro and have been with Amber and with many of you. So I'm so glad you all came today. Amber's going to let you know what's happening next. Thank you so much. It's truly a joy. I think that's the other thing I just want to say, that I'm just really into joy right now. I've had so much grief and so many things I could be so upset about, but my soul just wants to smile and I just want to be joyful. But when I let myself feel how I feel being with you, I just feel joyful. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say that because people are having such a hard time and there's so many challenges in the world. But wow, if you feel joy, then let that be here. So I feel and I acknowledge that I feel joyful in your presence. Thank you.
I also just want to say one of our next guests is Samarit, and I'm so excited to have her on one of our other seminars, but I just feel so called to say that, one of the things that we're doing here are building women's community and women artists, creatives, healers, and that we have a Black, Indigenous, and women of color call for our membership that's guided by Samarit and Lauren. So that it happens every single month. There's an opportunity to weave with women of color and to explore how that works with the red thread and what are the distinctions in intentional creativity between cultures. And so we're doing this all together as we're learning and growing. And I just wanted to give another shout out because this is so beautiful. This amazing quilt made by one of our sisters and community leaders, Sumaya Yates, who is also a tech diva if you're looking for tech support. But she made this for me. And it just is such a comfort, and we've been connected for so many years, but just coming from a family of quilters and tapestry makers to receive this, and I just like cover myself in this love of this community. So I had it right here, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Samaya and the weaving that's happening in the Black, Indigenous, and women of color community, including how we're going to be having a museum show for the work coming forward. And I know when Summery speaks, she'll be sharing about that as well. But I really want to give a call out for that today, because I think it's important for you to know that that is very important to us in our work together as we grow and heal.
Beautiful.